this episode of the Cryptid Crew Podcast. I would like to welcome on best-selling author, Paranormal Investigator, and the co-host of the UNFREAKINGBELIEVABLE podcast, Betsey Kulakowski. Betsey, I've been looking forward to this episode. Glad to have you on.
Oh, thanks. I'm so excited to be here. Appreciate it.
Yes, absolutely. I've been looking forward to this. If you could tell our listeners just a little bit about yourself.
Well, I am a retired safety professional. I worked for the Oklahoma Department of Labor for about 28 years, went on to work in nonprofit, and then just recently retired and relocated to Arkansas. I'm the author of the Veritas Codex Paranormal Thriller series, which follows television investigator Dr. Lauren Grayson. She has a television show where they go on quests to answer the truth to the world's greatest mysteries and unsolved legends and things like that.
Right. And how many books are in that series?
Currently there's 7, and book 8 will be out later this summer.
Oh, awesome. So you got something else coming up then.
Oh, yeah. And I've already written all the way through 11, and I have a good idea where 12 is going to go.
Oh, great.
Yeah,
great.
So lots to look forward to.
Yes, absolutely. Let me ask you this. Do you live in Tornado Alley?
Oh, my gosh, do I ever. I grew up in Tornado Alley. I actually have a degree in emergency management. I responded to the Murrah bombing in Oklahoma City, the World Trade Center, Hurricane Katrina, and then all the tornadoes that have happened. I'm usually somewhere in the third line going in. Worker safety annex is primarily what my responsibilities have been in disasters. I've served as safety officer for the State Office of Emergency Management's Earth, Wind, and Fire exercise. But I'm usually out there in the field making sure the workers are safe doing cleanup. So
you have been around some catastrophic events then.
Oh, yeah. And I think writing has been a good way to kind of channel some of those emotions and allows me to kind of disconnect a little bit when it gets hard, because I've done some hard stuff and, I'm happy to be able to do it, but I also need to kind of back off occasionally and, protect myself.
Absolutely. I went down to close to New Orleans during Hurricane Katrina to take a customer of mine a trailer, semi-trailer down there to live in actually while they did cleanup down there. Yeah. But it was once I got into Mississippi, yes, extremely sad, just unbelievable. If you did not see it for yourself, you would not. It's hard to describe.
That's very true, because it's not just a block taken out. It's not just a localized area. It was the entire region, the entire southern part of the state of Louisiana, which is where I did a majority of my inspections. There were very few places you could go to and say, okay, this area is untouched or this area is already cleaned up. I was on the second wave with OSHA's disaster response team going in. That would have been in October of 2005. It was still in pretty bad shape. They had just officially, the Army Corps of Engineers had just officially declared the area to be dewatered, which basically meant it wasn't flooded anymore. That's their term for it, dewatered.
You don't hear that term too often.
No, I don't think I've heard it anywhere else ever. But we went in and started working with different buildings to do inspections. One of the places I had to inspect was Charity Hospital, which is the oldest public hospital in North America, and it had been flooded, and they had been in there for about 10 days before everybody got rescued out of it. Pretty bad shape. And it was one disaster after another, no pun intended, just going from job site to building to assignment, landfill. We were out in the middle of the bayou a couple of days, just all over the region trying to help where we could. And it was bad.
Right. On my way back from, Louisiana to Alabama, I do not know how many different fire departments from different states coming through, going down to help. There's so many people.
Yeah. Mutual aid is the backbone of emergency management. That's what the fire departments all do.
It was great. Yeah. Our youngest son's a fireman. And
so
Yes, absolutely. So do you see storm chasing in your future or no?
I have done some storm chasing, but I prefer to run ground ops. I'm happy to sit I've got, multiple screens in my office, and I will split them into 3 or 4 different screens. And I've got one news station. I've got Mesonet. I've got radar. I'm tracking where my kids are, where my family is, where we are. I live in a community now that does not have an outdoor warning siren, which is very unnerving to me as an emergency manager. But I have other ways of getting my alerts, which you always should. So, I do storm chasing, but mostly from my desktop nowadays. But I have been out in the field. I've had them chase me, and I don't like it.
No, that's a bucket list thing for me, but I did not realize how expensive some of those trips are that you go on. You want to go with somebody who's, trained and knows what they're doing. You don't want to just be out there, going maverick. Right. No doubt. Well, let me ask you this. Let's transition into, I guess, what got you interested in the world of Bigfoot or paranormal?
That's a very good question, because it started for me very young. When I was small, my grandfather's in the oil field, and we traveled from the Canadian border all the way down to the Gulf of Mexico for his work. And for a time we lived in the Pacific Northwest, and that's where I heard about Bigfoot. I was really young. I mean, under 3, but that was the first real monster story I remember hearing. So I've always grown up thinking, Bigfoot is my monster. And, so I've been interested in it. I've lived in places that have been, likely locations for Bigfoot. Oklahoma has a very large Bigfoot conference every year because there's a lot of sightings in southeastern Oklahoma. I'm about 2 hours outside of Fouke, Arkansas, which is where the Boggy Creek legend comes from. I've been in Colorado. I've lived in Washington. So I spend a lot of time in the woods. I like to hike. And so it's just one of those natural things. I'm curious about the world around me. And I want to know, is it out there? And so I'm going to go looking for it.
Well, let me ask you this. Have you had any interesting experiences or encounters while you're doing that?
I have had 3 very good near misses, which is okay by me. One of them, we had gone on a girls' trip to Georgia, and we were up in the Blue Ridge Mountains. And one of my fellow authors and I were on a morning hike. And there had been storms blew through the day before. And so she had planned this whole hike, and I really didn't know a whole lot about this area, but we had stopped at the Bigfoot Museum, Expedition Bigfoot in Ellijay, Georgia the day before. Great museum. If anybody ever gets anywhere near Ellijay, stop in, say hi to Amanda the Bigfoot lady, because she's a delight and is now a friend of the show for UFB. And so we had gone on this hike, and we were going into an area where they had some trees come down during the storms the day before, and the guys were out running chainsaw, and one of them had bogged down his chainsaw in the tree and had to go get another one. And we had just gotten there as he was starting up the second one. And so he stopped and helped us get over a fallen tree to go on our path, and was asking us questions and where we're going, and just kind of this cryptic, well, be careful out there. You never know what you're going to run into. And we hadn't gone probably 500 yards when he got that chainsaw fired up, and this blood-curdling scream, like a woman screaming, came out of the woods. And we stopped and kind of looked around, and it was like, okay, somebody does not like the chainsaw. So I've heard Bigfoot. It sounded just like the recordings at the museum, so I'm 100% confident that we heard Bigfoot. The second one I had was we had gone up to the Pacific Northwest to Mount St. Helens, which is where the Veritas Codex is set. And I just was kind of fact checking where we'd been. We were doing some hiking. My husband and I were up there visiting friends. And he's looking around at the scenery and just enjoyed the day. And I'm staring at the ground looking for footprints. And I didn't see any. But the day after, there was an article in the newspaper saying that there had been footprints found on the trail that we had hiked the day we had been there.
Oh, wow. So you just
so
missed
we
it.
Just missed it. So that's my near miss number 2. My near miss number 3 was in Oklahoma, and I had a friend that lived down in Honubby, which is where the Bigfoot Festival is. And I had never been down there. I always had wanted to go. And so he said, well, drive down this highway. It's the Bigfoot Highway. He said, you can stop and take pictures at the sign, but that's kind of the area we live in. And just take that way when you go home. And it was a little out of the way, but it was worth it. So we stopped, got out of the car, and we're at this fork in the road, literally just a T crossing. There's one metal building, the sign, and trees, and that's it. No traffic, no other people, just us. And so we stopped to get out and take pictures, and my husband's, taking a couple snaps for me, posing under the sign. And just this smell, this horrible, rancid, rotten smell, like kitty litter and a meat rendering plant. And I have, as a safety inspector, I have been to rendering plants, I've been to foundries, I've been to paper mills, and those all stink like you would not believe. But this stunk even worse. So we get back in the car because I want out of there because that was awful. And I'm texting my friend and I said, do you guys have a rendering plant anywhere near where you live? He goes, no. I said, paper mill? He goes, no. He said, what did you smell? And I told him exactly what I smelled. He goes, you smelled the booger, meaning Bigfoot.
Right.
So that was near miss number 3. So I've smelled it, I have heard it, and I have missed footprints by a day. So That's the closest I've come. I have never seen it. I've never felt its presence, but I am madly aware of what it smells like.
Some people say the skunk ape term came from the smell.
Yeah.
But yeah, I've heard rotten eggs and wet dog, and some other, variations. But that sounds like, with nothing like that in the area, you're just about positive that's what it was.
Yeah, a process of elimination.
Absolutely. And the Blue Ridge area in Georgia is extremely active.
Yes.
There's a lot of reports that come out of there. And have you ever seen the state trooper dash cam?
I have not.
Video from there.
Or if I have, I've forgotten about it.
Okay, yeah, it's probably a decade ago or longer. Sometimes I think you can still pull it up on YouTube or Google, but it's they did not debunk it, but it was a night crossing, and he had a witness with him as well. So, but yeah, there's a lot of activity up there.
Yeah,
no doubt. And then close to, if you're only 2 hours from Fouke, that's a legendary place in itself.
Yep. I one of the things I did when we're getting ready to move here is I'm a safety professional, so I'm gonna know my environment. I pulled up a list of all the sightings in Arkansas, and there is one within 3 miles of our house.
Close. Have you investigated?
I'm ever on the lookout.
Have you been to that site?
I hike all over the place. I have not found that site. It was right on the highway, Highway 7, which is considered the most beautiful highway in Arkansas because it's all twisty, windy, mountainy, woodsy, and really not that far. So I've driven past where it was on the highway, but there's hiking trails back in there, and I haven't done those yet. But it's on the list to do. I've only been here a couple of months, so still getting acclimated.
Right. What would be your favorite place that you've been as far as hiking or Bigfooting or whatever?
Georgia was beautiful. I think Georgia was the one that surprised me the most. I love Colorado. I love northern New Mexico, anywhere up around Red River. I love all those places. But Ellijay, Georgia, the people were beautiful. The food was amazing. And the scenery was unmatched. And then to have that near miss truly, truly caught me off guard because I was not expecting that.
Yes, I agree with all the above there. The food is great.
And, best biscuit I've ever had in my life. When we got back, I did a social media post that I had put on there that said, if I ever get back to Georgia, I'm going to nail my feet to the ground.
It's a great place to visit.
Yes,
we've been there a couple of times. And the museum's great, like you said. It's pretty interesting.
Yeah.
All right, let me ask you this. I know you said you've done some ghost investigations or paranormal.
Yes.
What's some of the most memorable places you've done that?
Probably the one that I've got the best evidence at was the old fort. It's an Indian fort at Fort Reno in Oklahoma. It's just outside of Oklahoma City, about an hour. And it was a fort that was established before statehood to manage the tribal lands, when they brought people over from the East Coast on the trail. And it is now an RDA research development for the Ag Department. So it's an active site. It's active federal property. but the old historic buildings are still there on site. It was a POW camp during World War II. My grandfather was actually involved in bringing POWs from Germany to Oklahoma when he was serving in the military. He was an MP. But they do ghost tours out there because they've had so much activity. And my mother is a historian. We're both genealogists, and we had done some research for them to try to identify some of these ghost stories, the people involved with it, and pull up, records and newspaper articles. So she'd done a lot of work and had volunteered out there. So we kind of had a standing deal where we would come out when they did a tour, just kind of watch for people. We'd participate in the tour, but just kind of make sure nobody wandered off or got into an area they weren't supposed to be into. So I would get out there early, and I would go around, and one of the buildings was the old Victorian, which was a home of one of the officers. And it was under renovation, and we're no longer allowed to go inside because it had asbestos in it. But I would take pictures in the windows before we'd go out at night. I'd go out during the daytime and take pictures just to have a baseline. And so I had done that with the Victorian on this particular trip. It was in October. It was their Halloween ghost hunt. And I had some things happen before this that I had a feeling, it's like when you just know in your core, this is going to be a good night. So after it got dark and we're kind of walking through with the group, we had the last group to go around. We get to the old Victorian and we're walking around the building, and I come around one side and I just kind of taken pictures, the same pictures I had taken earlier. I'm repeating them in the evening after it gets dark. And in the window, in one of the pictures, is this face. And you can see the hand on the glass. You can see the face leaning in, and you can kind of make out the eye sockets and the outline of his beard, where his mouth was. And I'm sitting there with the camera, and I've got it on a digital recording loop. And he's still there. And he's just looking at me like, what are y'all doing out here? You kids, get off my lawn. And I got 3 or 4 rapid succession pictures. And I turned around to say something to somebody, and when I turned back, he was gone. So I got a couple of really good pictures of that. And I actually ended up giving the rights to the Travel Channel to use it on one of their ghost adventure shows. They did like a fan favorite. But apparently it got their attention, which tells me I'm on the right track. So that was probably the one that I've gotten the most evidence on. When we were down in New Orleans at Katrina, when we were going through Charity Hospital, as I said, it's a very large public hospital. It's 28 stories,
oh, wow.
A full city block. It's huge. And we are two inspectors by ourselves in full respiratory protection, Tyvek suits, steel-toed boots. It's 107 degrees, felt like about 70% humidity. It's hot. It's miserable. There's no power, no air conditioning, no elevator. And we walked every single inch of that building. Took samples, looking for hazards to see what the workers coming in to do the cleanup are going to be up against. It took us 2 full days to do that. The whole time, you can feel eyes on you. Things would go bump in the night. There's nobody else in the building. We were the only 2. There's police guard at the door, so we know nobody else is in there. There might have been critters, but the basement had been fully flooded. The morgue doors had been washed out. As we're walking through the basement, we can see shadows moving across the door to the morgue. Never got pictures. They were property of the federal government, so I didn't get to keep any of them. But just one of those things that you knew you weren't alone. Something was there. There was an elevator shaft that the doors had been barred open on the 5th floor, that if we had walked into it, we would have gone down 5 floors. So that was one of the hazards we identified. But I only identified it because as I got close to it, I heard no. And I stopped. And I can't explain that. I just can't.
And no one else was in the facility.
Just me and my partner, and I could see her ahead of me, and she had a very, not a high-pitched voice at all, and this was a very deep voice. No. So yeah, definitely.
How old, or when was that hospital built, you know?
It was originally built in 1758, 1798, somewhere around there. And of course they built onto it, tore down parts, added to it. So it was, I would say the structure as it is now started around the 20s and ran through probably the 70s or 80s.
Oh, wow.
Big building. And, they had bodies in the stairwell because they couldn't get to the morgue because it was flooded. Patients dying because they're having to hand ventilate them. No food, no water. They busted into every vending machine in the building trying to find something to eat. Nobody had a can opener. You could see where they had just taken hammers and scalpels and stuff trying to get into canned food because somebody had it in their desk drawer and couldn't get into it. So definitely one of those places that will haunt me forever. Another one, I've stayed at a lot of haunted hotels, but by far the one that I've had the most experiences in was in the Skirvin Hotel in downtown Oklahoma City. I was a building inspector. I did asbestos inspections for the state while they were renovating that back in the 90s. And I would get reports from the construction crew that the water would get turned on by itself. And every time the water turned on, they would have to breach the containment to turn the water off. So they had it all sealed off with plastic. And then when the water got turned on, they had to rip the plastic apart, and they had to notify the state every time they breached containment just to turn the water off. And it would happen multiple times a day. And then I started talking to him. One of the guys that was working there, he was kind of into the paranormal, and he kept telling me stories about somebody walking into containment. They turn around to tell them to get out, and there'd be nobody there. And power tools would get turned on by themselves, and they weren't even plugged in. So all kinds of weird things like that. Yeah, not even then. And I've stayed there. I stayed there once, and I'm going to be staying there again in September. So I've never had a personal experience there myself, but the spirits are willing. We'll have one maybe this year.
Do you have any type of paranormal equipment to investigate with?
I believe the best senses are your eyes and your ears and your camera. I take my camera, voice recorder. I use, because I was a safety inspector, I have a device called a touchless AC voltage detector that I use to do electrical inspections. And it basically will tell you where there is a presence of electrical current. And I typically use that more to debunk than anything. If somebody's got an electronic monitor going off, I'm going to go check and see, is there wiring that's not properly installed? Is there power somewhere that there's not supposed to be? And I can use my skills as a safety inspector to go in and debunk things. If that thing goes off and there's no electricity anywhere, then perhaps there is something there.
Right. Have you ever seen any orbs?
Oh, yeah. Lots of orbs. Fort Reno, the attic of the commissary, lots of orbs there.
Yeah. I had woke up one night here and went to the kitchen to get something to drink or snack on. I don't remember. Mm-hmm. It was probably just a little after midnight. And the only thing that was on in the house was the kitchen, the stove light. Mm-hmm. And out of the corner of my right eye, I saw an orb go from one wall through the other wall. Mm-hmm. And I thought, did I just see that? And I had to think about it for a second, and I said, yes, I did see that. Yeah. So I proceeded to walk out of the kitchen.
Don't need a snack now.
Back to bed, but I would not tell my wife for months. Yes. Yeah. I did not tell her, and I finally wound up telling her, what happened, but she didn't. Yeah. Didn't think much about it, but I know what I saw, and I know, some of this where we live is about 22 acres. And my grandfather had found years ago arrowheads. Mm-hmm. I don't know. So there was some type of activity, Native American activity here on this land, but don't know what it was. Just know what I knew what I saw. Right. We'll transition into your books. Can you tell the listeners a little bit about each book that you have out?
Sure. Right.
I know you said there's 7 now.
Right.
Eight in the works, right?
Right. Okay. And they're all part of the same series, and they're best read in order because they kind of build upon each other. So the Veritas Codex is book 1, and that's my Bigfoot introduction because they are in the Pacific Northwest on the hunt for Bigfoot. And in the middle of the investigation, the lead investigator, Lauren Grayson, she's the lead character, she's abducted. She disappears, and she's gone for 10 days. And when she comes back, she has no memory of what happened to her. But all the evidence suggests that she was abducted by Bigfoot. So the real mystery becomes what happened to Lauren. Was it aliens? Was it Bigfoot? Well, it's a pity she can't remember. So that's book 1. Book 2 happens a couple years later, and the television network decides at the last minute that they need an episode on the Mayan apocalypse of 2012. And so they have to go down and at the very last minute put together this investigation on at Chichen Itza in Mexico. And in the middle of all this, they get involved in an international antiquities deal. And they run across a convicted felon who has escaped from prison, who is running these illegal antiquities. There's a missing persons case involved, and they have to find the answers to, the whole deal. And Lauren's running gag is, if my calendar runs out at the end of the year, I don't get upset and scream, the sky is falling. I just go get a new calendar. And so do they just need a new calendar? Is it really the end of the world? We know what happened, but anything can happen in the world of the Veritas Codex. Right. Book 3 is called The Alien Accord. And Lauren has a brother. She has 6 brothers, but she has one who is the fly in her ointment. He's always trying to one-up her. He got his PhD first. And then after she got hers, he had to go get a second one. He's a radio telescope engineer. And he's listening for signals from outer space. And he's always teased that he's going to find aliens before her. And when one of his colleagues is murdered, it all looks like it's going to turn on him, and he needs her help. And they haven't talked in years. So they have to work together to find out, are the aliens real? Are we alone in the universe, or do we really want to know? And they have to work together to make that happen. So there's a little bit of family drama in that one. And we get to see a little bit of Lauren's backstory in that book as well. Awesome. Book 4 is The Monk's Grimoire, and I wrote this book in 24 days. The first draft. Wow. Takes longer once you start editing. I type really fast. I type about 145 words a minute last time I had a typing test. 145? And I sat down 145. Wow. Yeah. I have been writing this weekend. In 3 days, I wrote 25,000 words. So I can write super fast if the muse is with me. And the muse was definitely with me on this book, because I had a single thought about, there's a book called The Devil's Codex, and it's a real book. It is the largest book in antiquity. It's actually the largest book ever, really. It's about 6 foot tall, 6 foot in length, 4 feet wide, and then it's great big thick. But it's written on vellum, which is basically animal skin. They think it's donkey. And the story behind it is that there was a monk who was sentenced to be walled up alive for breaking his monastic vows. And he promised that if he could write this book in one night to magnify the church, they agreed not to wall him up alive, which basically is put you in a room, wall in the door, and leave you to die. So he goes to work on this book, and halfway through the night, he realizes, as his time is fleeting very quickly, he's not going to be able to finish. So he makes a pact with the devil to let him finish this book. And this book is perfect. The handwriting, there's not a single error. It includes all the ancient works up to that point. And one page has this horrific drawing of a devil, which he included to thank the devil for his work, which I'm thinking, if you're a monk and you're trying not to get walled up alive, making a deal with the devil is probably a bad idea. Exactly. So in my story, Lauren has been tasked with helping find some missing pages of the Devil's Codex, because they found a page that has her name written in the margin in the same font with a cryptic message. And the only thought that drove me while I was writing this was, the devil had it coming. And that's what motivated me to just keep going. I had to get to the end of it. And it's one of my favorites in the series, just because it was such an impassioned project. It just came to me. The words flowed like water. And so we get to see what Lauren has to do to basically stop the devil from finding these missing pages, right, which is a huge enemy to have to fight. Sure. Yeah. Book 5 is The Lost Templar, and I am a descendant of Templars. So I'm very interested in all the Templar lore, and I've been fascinated with it since I was very small. And in this book, Lauren has brought the family back to Oklahoma to go down to Honebi. They're speaking at the festival, and then they're going to go on a Bigfoot hunt. And she feels like this is a relatively safe investigation to take her young boys on. They're all Boy Scouts, and they're learning how to navigate the woods and all this kind of stuff. But she wants to bring them on the show with them. And while they're down there, they find a cave that has runes in it, the old Templar runes. And when she reads the runes, something happens, and they're thrown back in time.
Time travel.
For the boys. So they have to help find the lost Templars. There are some treasures involved. I won't the details which one. I'll let the readers find out which ones they are. But I think you'll find it interesting, and it's kind of a fun little jaunt. There's good moments and highlights and downsides and all that kind of fun stuff. So I really enjoyed writing that one. Book 6 is The Pirate's Curse. This was the funnest one to write because I threw everything into this one. We have Bermuda, which the Bermuda Triangle. My husband and I went to Bermuda on our honeymoon. We have pirates. We have mermaids. We have time travel. We have the Bermuda Triangle. We have Atlantis. We have chaos. Did I say mermaids? We have mermaids. So everything I could possibly imagine I threw into this book. And they end up they're going out looking for one of the other sister channels is kind of like a nautical marine channel. And so one of their ships disappears, and they have to go into the Bermuda Triangle to find it, and then they disappear.
Oh, awesome. So
the running gag is Lauren is the queen of disappearing at the worst possible time.
That seems like that's her
MO.
thing. Yes, for sure.
Yeah. And then book 7 is a little darker. It's a little more morose because Rowan has gone back to his alma mater to speak at the college, and he and his professor go out on the Red Sea to do a search for the crossing of the Red Sea from the Bible. There's some archaeological treasures that have already been found, indicating they may have found the location where they actually crossed the Red Sea. She wants to show him. And while they're out on the sea, they get abducted by Sudanian pirates from Sudan. And there is some military conflict going on in the region in the Middle East, and it becomes an all-out battle. And Rowan is kidnapped because one of these leaders thinks that he knows where Saddam Hussein's Stargate is. And he needs that Stargate to be able to win this war that he's wanting to start. And so it all becomes a rescue mission to get Rowan back, which is Lauren's husband, and also part of the show. So there's a love story in all of them, long-term family. They're together, and he's her match, and it couldn't happen without both of them working together. So that's book 7, and then book 8 is coming out this summer. It's The Sultan's Stone, and it's partially set at the Stanley Hotel.
Oh, okay.
So everybody knows about the Stanley Hotel. It's where Stephen King got his inspiration for the book The Shining. I have never been able to finish that book. I've tried. It's just not for me. And I have never been able to walk through the door at the Stanley Hotel, though I have stood in the parking lot no less than 3 times. And there's something there that I cannot go in.
Something telling you not to. Really? Yes. Something telling you just do not enter this place. Yes.
So Lauren's probably wishing she hadn't had to go in, but I put her in there in the first book, and now they're revisiting that in book 8.
Gotcha. Now let me ask you this: if somebody wants to purchase the series, the box, or a single book, where can they find this?
So all the books are available easily on Amazon. If you prefer to go to your local independent bookstore, you'll have to ask them to order it, but they can order it through Ingram. All my books are available for order through Walmart.com, Target.com, Google, Apple, Kobo, Kindle, Audible. I'm forgetting one. Barnes & Noble. Did I say Barnes & Noble? Yeah, anywhere you can find a book, you may have to order it, but they can get it for you because we print on demand so that we don't, waste trees and all that kind of fun stuff because Lauren wouldn't want us to. But they're available everywhere. Okay. And then I go out and do book shows and fairs and things like that. So if you're in Arkansas, watch for me. I could be out. I know I'm going to be out for the Paranormal Conference in October here in Little Rock. So.
In Little Rock, okay.
Yeah.
All right. Well, I'll get a couple of links from you as well,
Sure.
and put those in the description for the listeners.
And you mentioned there is a box set for the first 6 books for Kindle. And if you're looking for a discount, that's a great way to go, because you can get all 6 books for $9.99 and have that
great
first
price.
6 book set. We'll probably do another box set for the next 6. So we'll see how that turns out.
Awesome. Looking forward to that.
Yeah.
Well, we do this towards the end of the episode. I've got this rapid fire Q&A.
Okay.
I ask 3 questions, and the first thing that comes to your mind on each one. Are you ready?
I'm ready.
All right.
I think.
Favorite movie?
Favorite movie, Twister.
Now,
Yes.
do you like the first one or the new one?
I like the first one the best. I'm a big Helen Hunt fan. I thought she was really good in that one. But I really did enjoy the second one. I thought it was well done. And they filmed it not very far from my house in Oklahoma.
Okay.
Both of them.
Yeah.
Actually, I had an audition for Twister. And that's one of the reasons why it's my favorite. I have a couple others I've been in. But that one I had an audition for. And my boss wouldn't let me take the day off. I had to drive up to like northwestern Oklahoma to go to this audition. I had it scheduled with an agent and everything because I was dedicated. I wanted to be dead body number 3 in a tree.
So I forgot to mention actress then.
Yeah. Well, intro. I like Helen. My favorite actress is going to be Angie Harmon.
Oh, okay. Good.
I really like her.
Choice.
If I were going to cast Lauren, 10 years ago, it would have been Angie Harmon.
Right. Yeah, the first Twister's my favorite.
Mm-hmm.
I enjoyed the second one.
Mm-hmm.
I wish they would have tied those two together a little bit more than just having Dorothy, I think, was the only thing.
Some character interaction,
Right. Okay, question number 2.
Okay.
Favorite author or writer?
Oh, my favorite author. I have a couple of favorites. It's really hard to pick because all my friends are authors. So, J.B. Cade and Jenny LaBranche, those are my 2 favorites. Of course, they're my co-hosts on Unfreaking Believable. But I really like Diana Gabaldon, who wrote Outlander. I've read all of those books. They're also what I like about them is they don't stick to one genre. It's romance, it's paranormal, it's time travel, it's historical. And that's kind of my books all bend those genres. I have science fiction, I have paranormal, I have thriller, I have a little bit of romance in the background. It's not spicy or anything. It's just mildly spicy at times. But yeah, I like that when a writer can do that.
Right. Question number 3. Your favorite paranormal or Bigfoot show, past or present?
Oh, anything Josh Gates. He's my
Josh.
hero. I mean, Rowan is loosely based on Josh Gates. So
Josh
it
Gates
started
is
for me. Yeah. I was watching Destination Truth back in 2008, 2009. And, we're a couple of seasons into it. And I'm sitting there at 2 a.m. going, we're this far into it and they never find anything. And then I thought, well, what if they did, but it's a truth they could never tell? And that was really the nexus for the Veritas Codex series. That's where I started. So yeah, definitely anything with Josh.
Yeah. I enjoy Expedition X.
Uh-huh.
That's probably
Heather Amaro, who's on that show, is from Arkansas.
Oh, really?
And I was literally at the racetrack the same day she was, and I'm looking for her because I'm going to hunt her down. We're going to be friends. I'm going to put that out to the universe right now. She and I are going to be friends, so we can go ghost hunting together.
Yes, if she's listening, you just heard
Yes,
Betsey.
Heather Amaro, you and me, girl. Let's go.
Absolutely. Well, good deal. Well, Betsey, I'm always fascinated by people's story, and really enjoyed listening to yours. And
Thank you.
If you go to that place that's 3 miles from you, that had the report, let me know if you find something.
I will. I promise.
Really interested. So, just keep up the good work.
Thank you.
And like I said, I enjoyed having you on the show.
Thanks.
And for the listeners, like, share, and subscribe. It helps the channel out. And if you had an encounter, something unexplainable, email us at the Cryptid Crew Podcast at gmail.com or click the link tree in the description and share your report. Thank you for listening, and God bless.